Here are the top 10 evil prisoners who will never escape solitary confinement. Have you ever pondered the depths of human malevolence and the extraordinary measures taken to contain it? Well, you're in luck, because today we'll delve into the realm of incarcerated malefactors who've been deemed so dangerous, so irredeemable, that they'll spend the rest of their days in prison. My name is Aegis Patola with Most Amazing Top 10, and without further ado, here are the top 10 evil prisoners who will never escape solitary confinement. At number 10 is Jose Antonio Acosta Hernandez, aka El Diego. If evil is a measure of your body count, then Jose here tops the leaderboards. El Diego is the former leader of La Línea, the leading faction of the Juarez cartel. Originally established as a team of heavily armed ex and active duty police officers, this unit has evolved into the enforcement arm of the cartel, safeguarding narcotics traffickers from the criminal underworld. In 2012, Hernandez himself was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, plus an additional 20 years for his involvement in a litany of crimes, including racketeering, narcotics trafficking, money laundering, and of course the Big M. And that M is big indeed, as Hernandez has confessed to orchestrating or partaking in over 1,500 unalivings between 2008 and 2012 alone. Hernandez finds himself serving not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive life sentences plus an additional 20 years. His new permanent home is the ominous and supremely fortified confines of the ADX Florence Supermax facility, touted as the most secure correctional facility on the planet, even above maximum security prisons. Here Hernandez resides in solitary confinement, as do all prisoners at ADX Florence, where he'll spend the rest of his days sitting with the consequences of his malevolent actions. If you're enjoying the video so far, you can support the channel by pressing the like button, subscribing to Most Amazing Top 10, and ringing that notification bell. Those who do can rest easy knowing that they're nowhere near as evil as number 9, Terry Nichols. Terry Nichols, American domestic terrorist, infamous for his role in 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. Born on April 1st, 1995, Nichols had an array of short-term jobs from farming to real estate before a fateful encounter with Timothy McVeigh during a stint in the US Army. The alliance culminated in the tragedy of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building on April 19, 1995, claiming 186 lives. In 1997, Nichols was found guilty in a federal trial on charges including conspiracy to use weapon of mass destruction and involuntary man unaliving, which stemmed from the tragic demise of federal law enforcement personnel. Although the plaintiff sought the capital punishment, aka the unalive penalty, the jury couldn't reach a consensus, and so instead he served a life sentence without parole. He also faced state charges during yet another trial in Oklahoma, where he was convicted of a staggering 161 counts of first-degree unaliving, arson, and conspiracy, but yet again the state jury was unable to decide on whether to impose capital punishment. As a result, he's serving 161 consecutive life sentences at ADX Florence in Colorado. On the other hand, his co-conspirator Timothy McVeigh, who planned and carried out the whole wasn't so lucky. McVeigh was executed in 2001. At number 8 is Luis Felipe, aka King Blood. Hailing from Havana, Cuba, Felipe made his way to the United States during the Mariel boat lift of 1990, an event famously depicted in Scarface. Among the so-called undesirables sent to the US was Luis Felipe, who would end up in Chicago, where he would first come into contact with the notorious Latin King street gang. Fast forward to 1986 and he moved to the Big Apple, where he founded the New York chapter of the Latin Kings. But eventually Luis Felipe was arrested on unaliving charges after he unalived his girlfriend while under the influence, serving 9 years at the Collins Correctional Facility in New York, but the tale only gets darker from here. See, in 95 he found himself convicted of orchestrating multiple unalivings from behind bars, penning the orders to fellow Latin kings on the outside. This led to his sentencing of life imprisonment, plus an additional 45 years served in strict solitary confinement with absolutely zero communication with the outside world. Currently, King Blood resides in the notorious ADX Florence. At number 7 is Kaboni Savage, whose name isn't just fitting, it's an understatement. Emerging as a dealer in Hunting Park, Savage ascended to become a kingpin, orchestrating the distribution of vast quantities of nose powder throughout North Philadelphia from 98 to 04. Savage's malevolence escalated when he was accused of personally slaying a stranger. Notably, he even ordered hits on competitors and adversaries, including orchestrating the demise of a rival dealer, Carlton Brown. His ruthless grip extended to intimidation, with threats aimed at witnesses' families, but unfortunately those threats turned out to be promises. Enter Eugene Twin Coleman, once in cahoots with Savage, who testified against Savage in a narcotics trial, leading to Savage's conviction. Savage retaliated by orchestrating the arson of Marcello Coleman's house, and the claimed 6 lives. Kaboni Savage ended up receiving 13 consecutive unaliving sentences, while Lewis was only given a 40-year sentence on account of the stark differences on the level of remorsefulness displayed during their testimonies. At number 6 is Darya Nikolayevna Saltykova, commonly known as Saltychika. Born into a rich Russian noble family in the year 1730, Saltykova lived alone in her estate after the passing of her husband. You see, Saltykova had some serious connections in high places, rubbing elbows with the powerful elite, but eventually the persistence of victims' relatives relatives caught the attention of none other than Empress Catherine II. Saltykova was arrested and held for 6 years while authorities held a painstaking investigation which counted as many as 138 suspicious unalivings. After a public trial, Saltykova was found guilty of ending the lives of at least 38 female serfs through brutal beatings and torture. Eventually, she was sentenced to life imprisoned in Moscow, where she spent the first 11 out of 33 years chained in a basement dungeon without a window and only given a candle during meals. And number 5 is Robert Maudsley, aka Hannibal Lecter. The longest serving British prisoner in solitary confinement, had a troubled youth marked by violence claimed to be his father. In the 1960s, he turned to night walking due to substance addiction and sought psychiatric help after attempting self-harm, citing disturbing voices in his head which urged him to assassinate his parents. He said that if he had, he would have never committed any of his future unalivings. In 1974, he strangled John Farrell, who had shown Maudsley pictures of his kidnapped victims. He turned himself in, leading to his institutionalization at Broadmoor Hospital. In 1977, Maudsley and another inmate brutally tortured and eliminated another inmate, resulting in another conviction and transferred to Wakefield Prison, where he brutally attacked and offed 2 fellow inmates, displaying extreme violence and earning him the nickname Hannibal the Anthropophage, because that's better somehow. Deemed far too dangerous, Maudsley occupies a 2-cell basement unit and is always escorted by 4 officers outside of his cell. At number 4 is James Marcello, aka Little Jimmy, aka Jimmy Light, aka Jimmy the Man. In April 2005, the spotlight shone on front boss of the Chicago outfit and his half-brother, Michael Mickey Marcello, as they faced charges for racketeering, conspiracy, loan sharking, running illegal gambling schemes, and 18 separate counts of unaliving people. Marcello's bid for freedom saw him offering a staggering $12.5 million worth of homes and bond collateral, a desperate attempt thwarted by the US District Judge. The former boss is now serving a life sentence in solitary at, you guessed it, the ADX Florida Supermax facility. Speaking of which, number 3 is Thomas Silverstein, America's most isolated man. This dude just can't seem to stop offing people. Thomas Silverstein's life in prison began at 19 for armed robbery, and he was sent to San Quentin. After some more crimes, he landed in Leavenworth, Kansas with a 15-year sentence, and in 1980 he earned a life sentence for eliminating an inmate who wouldn't be a pawn in his substance distribution scheme. He moved to USP Marion, enduring extreme solitary confinement, but nevertheless he was accused of another murder in 81 and got another life sentence, leading to his feud with rival gang member Raymond Lee Cadillac Smith, who he also eventually assassinated as the guards did nothing to keep the two apart. Then, after that, he orchestrated a guard's assassination and faced more life sentences. The guard's assassination served as the final straw, leading to a 23-year lockdown at the prison and inspiring a whole new prison design. Silverstein spent 36 years in solitary there, passing away as the longest held prisoner in the Bureau of Prisons. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, who, along with his brother Tamerlan, orchestrated the infamous and devastating Boston Marathon. The brothers placed pressure cooker near the finish line, causing 3 people to lose their lives and astounding 281 others to be injured in the aftermath. Just 3 days later, after their faces were revealed to the public thanks to CCTV footage, they fatally assassinated MIT police officer Sean Collier, not because they were identified, but because they wanted to steal his firearm. Then they hijacked an SUV and engaged in a wild with the police, even throwing at them. As Dzhokhar was trying to escape law enforcement, he drove over his own brother, dragging him under the stolen SUV about 30 feet. His brother didn't survive, and Dzhokhar abandoned the SUV and vanished on foot into the night, triggering an unprecedented manhunt of epic proportions. He was eventually discovered hiding in a boat in a Watertown backyard not far from where he had ditched the SUV. Inside the boat, scribbled on the cabin wall with a pen, the bomber left a note claiming the responsibility for the marathon attack, citing vengeance for US military actions in Afghanistan and Iraq. It coldly referred to the innocent victims as collateral damage, drawing eerie parallels to the casualties of war. He even expressed complete lack of remorse for having unalived his own brother. Ultimately, justice caught up with Tsarnaev. He faced trial where he's convicted of a staggering 30 counts, and his fate was sealed with a sentence of capital punishment. At number 1 is Klara Homolka, who gets the top spot for being Canadian. Sure doesn't make me proud. Back in the late 1990s, Klara Homolka and her partner in crime, Paul Bernardo, engaged in some truly heinous acts, responsible for the demise of not 1, not 2, but 3 innocent women, one of whom happened to be Klara's own sister, Tammy. Now, once her co-conspirator got nabbed by the authorities in '83, Klara decided to switch gears and claim that she was actually dragged into this nightmare against her will, painting herself as the unwilling accomplice. She then struck a deal that landed her a relatively lenient sentence of 12 years. And all she had to do was spill the beans on Paul. Jump back to the year 2007 and guess who's back on the streets? That's right, you guys, she didn't need to escape prison because, well, they let her out onto the streets willy-nilly. That's right, Homolka, now a mom of 2 and remarried, and get this, she's volunteering at a school in Montreal. Parents everywhere were like, hold up, are we seriously gonna let a former serial unaliver be around our miniature clones? Well, that was quite the unsettling journey through the lives of those who find themselves eternally secluded from the outside world. As always, if you've got a solitary convict in mind that I failed to mention today, go ahead and let me know in the comments. This has been AJ with Most Amazing, and I'll be seeing you all in the next one. Peace out. Alright, to their days in prison. My name is AJ Spatola, and in 2012 alone, excuse me, a staggering toll that encompasses the demise of consequence of Terry Nichols, American domestic. The case of Terry skip this. On the other hand, his co-conspirator Timothy with among the so-called